Welcome to Real Talk for Real Fundraisers, the podcast where fundraisers, nonprofit leaders, and industry experts come together to vent, laugh, and learn. Through candid storytelling and insightful interviews, we explore the highs, lows, and everything in between. With a fearless, irreverent, and conversational tone, we're breaking down barriers, challenging the status quo, and creating a safe space to tackle the real struggles of the nonprofit world, one honest conversation at a time. Now here's your host, Jeff Schreifels.
Welcome, everyone. Leaders, the nonprofit community needs good ones. And for today's episode, I'm going to be having a conversation with a fantastic developer of leaders, Adrian Owen Jones. She's going to talk about what makes a badass leader. And for all you current leaders out there, she's going to challenge you to help you bring up younger leaders. So a little bit about Adrian. Adrian Owen Jones is a nationally recognized strategist and certified fundraising executive who helps organizations grow through leadership development, organizational strategy, and technology transformation. She's a partner at a company called Success Labs and a LinkedIn top voice in strategy and philanthropy. She's known for combining analytical rigor with human insight to lead large-scale change. Adrian previously served as Chief Growth Officer, which is where I met her, at a nationally acclaimed creative agency working in the nonprofit and government space, and led advancement operations for LSU's $1.5 billion capital campaign. Okay, it's time for Real Talk. Hey, Adrian. Great to see you. And I'm so excited to have you on our first Real Talk for Real Fundraisers podcast episode.
I'm excited to be here.
All right. So I was just thinking, I met you, the first time I met you was at LSU. And I was asked to come speak to the whole development team around major gift fundraising.
Yeah.
And I remember you specifically because you ask questions. Sometimes when you're out there and people are like, I don't want to say, you were out there asking questions and you stood out and you were curious.
Yeah.
And you asked some really good ones. And ever since then, I started following you on LinkedIn. And it's been years now.
Yeah.
And I just find all of your posts really insightful, uplifting, and like right on, like, gosh, I want to know this person. She seems like I'd love to be friends with this person because she seems so cool.
Well, I feel the same way, Jeff. When you all, I remember coming to speak at LSU. This was at a time you would think LSU was a really sophisticated fundraising organization, but I was still tracking portfolios on spreadsheets, right? And like I had downloaded a template that you all had on the Veritas website that was like a moves management spreadsheet, and I'd proliferated it throughout the organization. I was like, y'all, this is the way, the truth, and the light. Yeah. And so I was just, I'm sure I don't remember asking a ton of questions, but I'm sure I did because I was just so hungry to soak up resources at a time where we just didn't have the tools and structure to really set people up for success.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about leadership today. Maybe you could talk a little bit first, some of the history of great leaders you've been under, colleagues that you've had, and now you're doing this as a job. You're developing leaders. Kind of talk about that.
Yeah. So I think what I hear you asking is what does great leadership look like to me? Based on my experience, being under good leadership and developing leaders. So I will say, I think I've been really blessed to have fantastic bosses my entire career. I mean, really and truly, I am that person who asks a lot of questions, and some people receive that openly and some people perceive that as a threat, right? Some people think that's annoying or maintain that kind of old school need to know mentality. And for me, throughout my entire career, great leadership has looked like openness to sharing information, that transparency, really maintaining a solid perspective on where the organization is going and bringing the full team along with that. It's vision casting, and it's helping people see themselves in that vision and bringing them along for the ride. And so, for from my very first role, I've spent almost my entire career in philanthropy. I was working at a private family foundation, and I had this incredible boss who would literally let me work right alongside her when we were like reviewing grant applications
Yeah.
or looking at proposals from nonprofits in the community. And she'd say, this is why this one looks great. Not only did they follow the instructions, they're really communicating their impact. They're really communicating a sense of gratitude to us. And so like early on, it instilled from me that kind of donor perspective that I was able to carry forward with me throughout the rest of my fundraising career, which is like, you've got to have impact. You've got to display gratitude. And I try to just like live my life that way as a result of those kind of early formative experiences.
It's so cool that you had that, because a lot of us didn't always have great leaders. And, if you think, I've had some really awful bosses, that weren't into developing people, that weren't, that was more concerned about their own growth versus other people's growth.
Yeah. So what does a good boss look like to you, or a good leader?
Good boss to me, something, like you said, but it's somebody that shows compassion, empathy, that challenges you, that has an openness about them that allows you to question what their directives, perhaps, but also, in a way that allows them to critique you, in a way that is uplifting. And I remember, some of the best bosses that I've had, or leaders that I've been under, really showed compassion for individuals. They understood where you were coming from and understood that you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And that it was okay. And that you would learn from those mistakes, and that you were actually encouraged to have mistakes, because you should take risks.
That's right.
And they might not all pan out, but that's okay.
That's right.
Those are the best leaders, I think.
That's right. I totally agree. I'm going to, not to derail, but I was in a conversation with a team yesterday, a really incredible nonprofit. And they were talking about how one of their core values is initiative. And they love, they're like, our team just isn't taking enough initiative. But then every other story out of their mouth was about how somebody didn't ask permission, went and just talked to the client, did all this stuff. And I was like, you all are sending such mixed messages. You say you want people to take risks and take initiative, but you're not fostering an environment of psychological safety around failure. And if you don't have that trust and that kind of like grace, then people are not going to be taking initiative for much longer,
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in places that did not encourage that. And so you felt like, I got to play everything safe. I can't make a mistake. You just kind of like feel closed. But then I've been in other environments where like, if you want to start this, do it.
Yeah.
And that kind of atmosphere is just a place where creativity can shine.
That's right.
Where your personality can really come out and it's rewarded. And I think those are the kind of leadership qualities or leaders that I've been under, that it's been remarkable for me in my own career as I've developed as a person.
Yeah.
And hopefully as a leader today, I can give that to whoever comes in my sphere of influence, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think there are a lot of nonprofit leaders that are actually not in positions of leadership, but they're leaders. They're people, they have those qualities. I'd like to ask, how have you seen that show up? And then do you have a personal story yourself around that kind of a leader?
Yeah. So, one, yes, you're absolutely right. Like what I first think of when you say not all leaders are in positions of leadership. I used to tell my team. So for those that don't know, I really spent the majority of my career coming up through advancement services. So I was, while I've had frontline roles and donor relations roles, I really built the back of house. And I used to tell my entire team, everyone is a fundraiser. All of you are fundraisers, right? You have to have that fundraiser mentality when you are building the portfolio or looking at a gift receipt or entering data into the database. And I take that same mentality around everyone as a leader. your attitude matters. That's like number one. I was working with a team recently and somebody said, well, I don't know when I'm allowed to give feedback. And I said, you give feedback all the time. That's demonstrating leadership, saying, I see you doing this well, and I see how this can be improved. Everybody has the capacity to do that, right? So how does that show up? I mean, I think that in the nonprofit space in particular, like we have to look at traditional organizational structures. I think that so often leadership doesn't necessarily look like the teams that they serve. And so that's where I think leadership in nonprofits has to be infinitely humble. I think that it has to be extremely transparent and, like you were saying, open to that feedback, but then open to giving, candor and context right back. But I think that this is also where organizations have to invest in their people, because everybody is a leader. Anyone could be out on the street interacting with a donor or interacting with a client, or, you want everyone to be embodying the mission of your organization and ready to, project that confidence. And that is also part of what leadership looks like to me.
Yeah. How about yourself? Like your own story growing up, did you always feel like you were a leader? Did you always feel confident and like you were always out front? Like, I'm trying to think, as you're growing up as a kid, can you look back and say, oh yeah, I had these qualities that...
Yeah, I think I like to say that I've met the moment. So I think that leadership right now has to particularly embody what's referred to as like transformational leadership style. You've got to be egalitarian these days. You have to be open and transparent. You have to be curious and adaptable. You have to be a learner. Like the number one thing I think leaders need today is learning agility.
Yes.
And that's not always been the case, right? I think when I was growing up, my grandfather was in the military and it was just like, sit down, shut up, It was so high conformity. It was command and control mentality. And I think the world that we're living in now, I got it right here. I picked back up. This is one of the most formative books I've ever read, Team of Teams. And I picked it back up recently because it's feeling so relevant. It talks about going from chess master to gardener. And I think that's the shift in leadership that's happening right now. Instead of seeing yourself as moving pieces on the board, you've got to tend a garden that creates an environment where people can thrive and give them the autonomy to go out and make their own decisions, because you've got to move fast, right? And so I've just always had a comfort level with that. Some people may know this, but I have a prior career as a world-ranked World of Warcraft player. And so I was a professional gamer. I took it very, very seriously and was one of the top ranked in the world. And what that really taught me was this kind of egalitarian, data-driven, adaptable approach to leadership. And I think that really, when you say, have you always had that? I think I learned it playing video games, a lot of it. I think I learned it just being a curious person. And I think I'm just fortunate that we're in this moment where those qualities are what are needed in organizations today.
That's really cool. I'm thinking about when I was a kid. And I remember I used to, I'd have an idea, like I wanted to have a bike race in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so I would get my dad to write up something at work, announcing this bike race is going to happen. Yeah. And then I'd go around the neighborhood and pass out sheets and make it happen. And kids would actually show up.
Yeah.
Or I remember my 7th birthday, I asked my mom, are we going to have a party? And she said, not this year. And I'm like, well, we have to have a
Absolutely
party.
Absolutely not.
And so I went around the neighborhood to the kids that I knew and said, I'm having a birthday party. I didn't even tell my mom, and said, we're going to have this birthday. And I came back, I said, we're going to have a birthday party this afternoon. She's like, oh my gosh, the parents are calling, and I had a birthday party and I had people coming to bring me presents. And I just look back at that as, those are some things that I look back now that just kind of happened to me.
Yeah.
That I felt like, I was so big into community. Community is a big for me, and having people around me. And I see that today as I am a leader, and what's important to me And I go back to when I was 7, kind of,
Yeah.
those were the little nuggets that kind of made me who I am a little bit.
Formative. You know what I
Yeah.
hear in that is I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach. So I love Clifton Strengths. It's like my
Yes, I
favorite
love it
leadership
too.
development tool.
Yeah.
And I hear in my answer, I hear my strategic thinking strengths, right? Like my top 4 out of 5 are all in strategic thinking. And what I hear
Yeah.
in yours are influencing. Like you've
Yes.
just got that natural
Yeah. One of mine is
influencing talent. Yeah, I see that. I totally hear that. Like woo and significance, I bet, because I see that just like, well, of course I'm going to have a party and I'm going to get everybody to come to it,
Yeah.
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 I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So if I'm a leader, what are some of the ways that we can amplify the voices that perhaps have been left out of leadership roles?
Yeah. Well, like I said, so often I think organizations as a whole don't necessarily look like the people that they serve. But even more broadly, within those organizations, I think leadership oftentimes doesn't necessarily look like their teams, right? I think largely, I've spent a lot of time in higher education, and how many presidents of fundraising foundations are, white men with 90% female teams, right?
Yeah.
And so what I hear when you ask that question for me is, how do you make sure leadership is actually representative of the people that they serve in the community and representative of the people that are serving them on the team? And that's where I think like transparency and communication are critical. I think that having ongoing dialogue and being open to feedback, externally from the community, are you actually solving the problems we need you to solve? So many organizations get hung up on a specific strategy that they think they need to adopt when it's totally disconnected from the needs of the people that they serve. So you've got to be open to that feedback, right? Those are leaders in the community whose voice isn't being elevated because the nonprofit wants to sit on top of it and claim the success and whatever. And it's like, I'm working with an organization right now. They're leading a significant early childhood education initiative, right? But they want to be the leader in the room. They want to be the voice at the front.
Yeah.
Even though there are people in the community who've been doing this work for decades and just haven't had the funds, right? Or the backing that this organization has. So it's like, how about you empower them, the people who have the relationships, who have the trust in the community and the network, and work with them hand in glove to do this. But there's such like pride of ownership, I think. So, so to me, like, how do you prevent that? Leadership has to be open to collaboration. It has to be open with sharing the credit inside the organization and outside. It has to be open to communication and feedback, positive and negative, within the organization and outside of it. So I think the only way you can get there is like self-awareness, and that goes from the individual level and the organizational level. And that comes through open dialogue, and collaboration and sharing credit, sharing the mission,
Yeah. It's so funny you were talking about that, because around your example, I just wrote a blog that came out today, actually, on what is your mission? And how everyone thinks, well, the mission is the thing you're doing that's helping change the world. But there's I say there's 3 other pillars to that. There's your staff and volunteers, there's your donors, and then there's the community in which you're serving. And often that community piece gets left out.
That's right.
It's like, we have this solution, we're going to come in and do it.
That's right.
And I love your idea of, no, we need to bring the community in as a stakeholder, amplify their voice, their leadership, and move that up. Because that's really, if you're working in these communities, that should be part of your mission.
That's absolutely right.
And we forget it.
It's harder, right? That's a struggle. It's often uncomfortable and it's often hard.
It is hard.
And what I mean by uncomfortable is you might hear you're going at this the wrong way. People get attached to programs, get attached to process, get attached to, well, we brought in this consultant and they told us this is what we need to do. And it's like, well, we're telling you that that's not what we need. That's really hard to hear, right? And then what I mean by it's harder, aside from the discomfort, it just takes more work. It's more work. It's very easy to come in and say, I know what needs to happen here. I'm going to go stand up these, 3 childcare centers, and I'm going to record the metrics for the first 6 months. And then I'm going to peace out and go do on my next thing. Right. It's hard work to build coalitions, to build buy-in, to build a strategy that is aligned with the needs of the community, that has everybody brought along in the process, right? It's so easy to just be like, no, the consultant said this, but this is what we're going to go do.
Yeah. Yeah. You do a lot of work with the Gallup stuff. You mentioned this earlier today, right?
Yeah.
And are there certain strengths that you see that leaders possess, or it doesn't matter? What is your take on it?
Yeah. So I love this story. Gallup went and looked at Google. They went into Google and they were trying to discover what are the strengths that make up innovative teams. They wanted to know, what's it take to be just super innovative and creative. And what they found is that it was no one set of strengths. It was that the most innovative and creative teams were those that understood the strengths of their team members. The individuals understood their strengths, and they understood the strengths of their team. And they knew how to leverage those strengths to support and advance the work. And so what I have absolutely found in my coaching is that you don't have to have any certain combination of strengths. I go through this exercise where I ask people to list successful people, anyone you think is successful. And it will be everyone from Taylor Swift to Warren Buffett to Oprah, we're at LSU, so oftentimes like Joe Burrow's thrown in there or whatever. And inevitably we go through the exercise of, okay, describe these people. And you have the realization that everybody has different strengths, but it's leaning into those strengths to be successful. Warren Buffett doesn't try to be Steve Jobs.
Right.
Steve Jobs wasn't trying to be, Oprah, right? It's like you're leaning into what makes you uniquely you. You're recognizing what your unique value and strengths and talents are, and then developing the heck out of those and leaning into it. And so that's really what I'll say is it's about understanding what makes you uniquely you. The caveat to that is, the one thing we found is what separates high performer from high potential. So if you're looking at people on a team and you've got somebody who's just a rock star at this level, what it takes to get from here to really executive level is learning agility. So I do think that having the learner in your top strengths is a leg up, but if you don't have it, that's okay. There's other ways that you can absolutely show up and authentically lead yourself. It's all about just understanding what those strengths are and being able to direct them daily. Yeah.
I don't have learner as a strength. But one of the things I've learned,
I'm really shocked about that though.
Are those learners?
Yeah.
I love them because they are like, I'll figure it out. Like, okay, and they will go and do the research and come back and they're excited because they've learned some new thing. Having a learner on the team is amazing.
Yeah.
So like for those who are listening, if you haven't done the Gallup strength thing, you really need to do it. It's fascinating because if you want to feel good about yourself, I think you should take that test because it just amplifies all these things that are amazing about you.
That's right. Yeah. It's your unique talents. So what are your top 5? Do you know? Do you remember?
Oh, gosh. Strategic is number 1.
Okay.
Maximizer. Woo. Yes. And then there's, I wish I had them. It was funny when the first time we talked a couple of weeks ago in preparation for this, I even had them ready because I thought maybe we would talk about this. And now I've forgotten the 2 other ones, but I'll say, communication.
I was going to say, I bet communication is up there.
Communication is one.
It. Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is the one where, you move on things quickly. What is that?
Oh, activator. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's a very entrepreneurial strength. So it's no surprise to me that you're such an entrepreneurial person.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what are your 5?
My top 5, I love my full top 10 because I feel like it's more reflective of who I am. But my top 5 are futuristic. So I love thinking about the future, strategic as well. So I'm good at thinking through, different scenarios and separating the wheat from the chaff. Learner. So
Yep.
I love learning for the sake of learning.
Yeah.
Ideation. So I love coming up with ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's my favorite
Yeah.
thing.
You'd be
And then,
fun to brainstorm with.
yes,
Yeah.
I could just come up with ideas all day. And then command. So I'm just, nope, we're going to go do this now. I feel very confident with that.
I love that.
I think it's the oldest daughter, in me.
Yeah.
It's okay. Well, now we're going to move on.
Those are great strengths.
Yeah.
I love that.
Everybody's strengths are great. Every time I learn somebody's strengths, I get so excited.
Yeah. Yeah. We did this as a whole company. Mm-hmm. And so we have a whole chart, like who
it's the best.
So like if we're talking with someone, because, there's the strength side, and then there's also the opposite side of like for me, activator, I've gotten in a lot of trouble.
For sure.
Right. Because you like act without thinking sometimes. Mm-hmm. You just go plow ahead.
Yeah.
And that can ruffle feathers and piss people off sometimes. But
yeah.
As you get older and you learn from those things, you mellow it out,
and this
then
is why
you
I
step
say
back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, one, self-awareness, I think, is critical, right? I call them the balconies and the basements. So you understand this is a potential basement quality, but the balcony is you're entrepreneurial and can move things. But what I always say is your team is your toolkit. So, I've always had someone around me who is deliberative, because I have activator in my top 10 as well. And so I like to move fast. I got a lot of ideas, and she was I'm thinking of one person in particular who I worked with for a long time. And she was so good at saying, which of these ideas are we actually moving forward on? Like she would pause and say like, do we really need to be moving on all of this right now? And say, oh no, we're not. I'm sorry. I was just throwing stuff out there,
Right.
And so it helps to surround yourself with people who are different from you that can, balance out your strengths in a good way.
Yeah. So I want to ask this to everyone I interview, and that is, what's something you've learned either from a mistake you've made or something that you took early on that in your career that has helped you as a leader today?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And this is at the end of the day, I'm going to boil it down to one word, and that is stoicism. But like more broadly, I think that a mistake that I made early on that I see so many young people in particular make is getting so wrapped up in thinking it's all about you, and thinking like, well, why wasn't I invited to this meeting? Why wasn't I on this project? Taking it personally. Oh, they're closing that door. I bet they're talking about, and it's like the stories you tell yourself are nonsense. That's nonsense. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Right. And so for me, like learning, I was fortunate to learn this early on, to step back, reframe what I'm thinking and say, you know what? I'm going to assume that if I was needed in that meeting, I'd be brought into that meeting. I'm not going to worry about it. I've got big goals to move. I'm grateful for my extra free time. Right. And just like reshifting that mindset, and maintaining just emotional, detachment is just critical. And I see so many people get worked up about the stories they tell themselves. And that's the work to me. It's like, that's what leadership looks like, is that detachment from personal interest and thinking about the greater good of the organization, and remembering it's not about you. It's really not. None of this is. Nobody cares about you.
That's really good. Yeah, that's really good.
How about you?
Gosh, I've made so many mistakes.
You've had so many learning opportunities.
I think I'll tie it into the activator thing. So early on in my career, activator gets rewarded a lot of times because, wow, they just went and did it and it was great. And, it moved a client forward, or it moved a relationship forward and no one else thought about before. And you just did it. We didn't sit around. And so I'd often get rewarded for being an activator. But then because of that, then I was like, hey, I'm just going to keep going. And I've made some mistakes where I hurt people. Unintentionally, but I hurt people, not thinking about ramifications of whatever I was activating on.
Yeah.
And so those moments caused me to say, okay, my natural tendency is like, come on, let's do it.
Yeah.
And knowing that I either need someone more deliberative to say, hey, hold on, let's think about this for a second. I love your energy about this, but let's step back and think about it.
Yeah.
Or I've just been able to self-regulate in a way to say, hey, this is my tendency. I got to check myself. Is this the right move to make? Even though it seems like it right away and you want to move on this quickly, is it better to step back?
Yeah.
And so that's what I earned early on in my career.
Yeah.
And
You got to
it's
slow your
helped me.
roll a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's helped me a lot because as a leader too, I lead this group we have like 35 staff around the world. And if I just ram things, people are like, hold on, what is wrong with this person?
Yeah.
And,
that's exactly right. I mean, one of the things about Activator is you oftentimes are thinking only through your lens, because thinking through other people's lenses takes time, right? So you're right to kind of have that gut check to slow and think about the ramifications. I think when I look back at some of the mistakes I regret the most, and I try not to have regrets, but the mistakes I've really learned hard lessons from, it has come from me not thinking through how someone else was going to take something.
Yeah.
I felt like I wasn't precise with my words early in my career. It's a thing I'm constantly working on. Because words really matter, and you say something flippantly and that can really have damning effects, And so, or sharing the wrong information, private information. I did that once, and I will not make that mistake, of, something that's going to impact somebody else's mental well-being, So, I think that, slowing down and thinking about the ripple effects is, again, part of that work. It's hard to do.
This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for being my first guest.
I loved it. This was so fun. So let me ask you one final question.
Yeah.
Do you have a strength that you think really shows up consistently in fundraisers that you've worked with across the country? I'm always curious.
Yeah, well, it's around curiosity. So what strength is that one the most? I mean, it could be learner, but the number one strength that I see in all frontline fundraisers who are talking with people on a consistent basis is that they're genuinely curious about the other person.
I think that's right. I think that's exactly right.
And it's so funny. I meet people like at dinner parties, and I can tell the ones that would be awesome major gift officers because they're the ones asking all these fun questions about you.
Yeah.
And you feel so good because everyone wants to talk about them. I mean, I love talking about myself if someone is asking really good questions.
Yeah.
And you can see they're genuinely interested in you. And for a major gift op, that is like number one.
Yeah. And what a blessing to help people feel seen through your questions, right?
Yeah.
So, well,
feel
thank you
seen,
for your
and
curiosity.
then even better later on, if you meet that same person, they bring up stuff that they heard.
Remember.
Then that means you feel known.
Yeah.
So being seen and feeling known is just something that every donor wants to feel.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. I think everybody wants to feel that.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So if people wanted to reach out to you at Success Labs, or I'm sure you have some resources for them, how do they do that?
Yeah. So if you go to our website, successlabs.com, so labs plural, successlabs.com, you can fill out our contact us form, and I can give you access to a whole host of tools. We have 360 feedback, of course, a ton of resources around Clifton Strengths if you want to learn more about that. And you'll also find we have classes that we teach from entry level all the way to executive that you can do virtually or in person, and just a whole host of other resources out there. So look us up, and I would love to connect.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining us today for some real talk, and we'll see you next time.